So peace, family. How y'all doing? We gonna get started in just a minute. We're gonna have a conversation. You know, Prophet Noble Drew Ali's birthday is tomorrow, and I just think it's very important that we have a real conversation. And if you are a Moorish American, a part of any temple that goes by that say they go by the teachings of the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, I think this would be of great interest to you to join us in this conversation, due to the fact that I'm one that's gonna keep it a buck all the way. I'm gonna keep it a buck all the way, and we have a lot of young people and middle-aged people, whomever, who are interested in the Moorish Science Temple of America. No matter where they may find that Moorish Science Temple of America, they're very interested. People reach out to me all the time. So I think it's time for us to put the standard where it's supposed to be. And I'm going to wait for my guests to come in, and we're going to talk about where the standard is supposed to be. Because first of all, one thing we have to recognize. Listen, y'all gonna walk with me for a minute, right? Let me make sure I get my phone. I want to make sure I have my phone right. Oh, they say I'm low. Can you hear me now? How am I now? Check. Yeah, I was let me check my headphones. I don't have to speak. Check. Hold on one second. Check. Check. Can you hear me now? All right. Excellent. Appreciate that. I want all the smoke. So listen. So one thing that we have to understand is this. I got my guests in here. So we're gonna have a conversation tonight. We're gonna have a real conversation tonight, and I'm good. I'm good now because I got my brother Akhenaten and Salam Bey in the building, and we're gonna have a serious conversation. And I would encourage you to share this. We're gonna be here for probably about an hour. I will encourage you to share this because this is critical moments right now, and we're gonna talk about, as I said, first I want to break in and talk about who is the Prophet Noble Drew Ali? What is the Moorish Science Temple of America? And how does it relate? And the title of this is Moorish Science, What You Don't Know Will Save Your Life. So first and foremost, let me rise and give praise to the great God of the universe, Allah. I give honor to his Prophet Noble Drew Ali. I give honor to the forerunner prophet, Brother Marcus Mosiah Garvey. I give honor to each and every one of you for joining me tonight. We're going to be here for an hour, and I think this is going to be an important hour. And I'm pretty sure you're going to enjoy this hour because I'm ready to get real critical and have a conversation with my brother, Brother Akhenaten Salam Bey, the Assistant National Representative of the Moorish Science Temple of America. When I say the, I'm talking about the definite article. We represent exactly what the Prophet taught to the best of our ability and our understanding, and we do not mind being corrected if you can show us where we're wrong according to the Prophet. With that being said, I yield the floor to my brother Akhenaten Salam Bey. Islam? I can't hear. There you go.
Islam. As always, I rise to raise my thoughts to infinite wisdom, the highest plane of life, and give praise to the universal creator, Allah, and give honors to his holy and divine prophet, Noble Drew Ali, the founder of the Moorish Science Temple of America, and who is an angel to us. And we give honors to his forerunner, the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, and we give honors to everything that pertains to Islam and Islamism. Honored to be on the 7th Grand Sheikh. I gotta get one of them shirts too, bro.
Hey, I'm gonna be having them ready for everybody. Like I say, we can't wear Adidas and Nike. We got to wear our own. Thomas Drew, that's right. We
There
got
you go.
our own.
Thomas Jew.
Absolutely. So with that
Islam.
being said, I want to start off by saying this. First of all, for those who are coming in, like those who came over from the YouTube channel, let me just say that one thing that I like to present is that Prophet Noble Drew Ali is a not only a reasonable source to get us up out of this condition, that it's a practical path up out of this condition. And I'm talking about the condition that we see right now. If you are at in financial difficulties, it's a reasonable path. And many people don't like to talk about finance, you know what I mean, when we talk about religion, because we think religion is something other than what it really is. And religion is basically realigning us back to our natural self, back to our original self. And so our original self is not broke, destitute, and outdoors. That's not our original self. So when you look at social, you look at education, whatever you look at, the Moorish Science Temple of America, as taught by Prophet Noble Drew Ali, is a resource and is a path. And most important, politically. And so that's where I want to start at today. As we see, brother, what do you think about the Trumpers today from yesterday? What do you think about that?
Wow. You don't want to get me started there, Grand Sheik, do you? A lot of that stuff.
Let's take 5 minutes and talk about the Trumpers, because I have my position on that. And I like to say, for those who has asked me, am I going to do a show on that? Will I do a show on Moorish World TV about that? I'll save that for my answer after Akhenaten.
Islam. Wow, it's just so interesting how that was playing all out, Grand Sheik. A couple of things that I noted is that it's interesting how an environment like that that's normally protected, gets evaded like that, or get invaded like that. It's too suspect for me to see that happen. I mean, we're supposed to be have one of the top notch, first of all, intelligence, right? That knows when certain things are going to evolve and happen, and then you don't have the areas cordoned off. Man, I just kind of see that as like a big show. The other aspect, they didn't have see how they got treated. I mean, this is the point we have to recognize too, that here were the Trumpers, right? And if it was people of us, so-called, that have went up in there, they would never have gotten even that far, or even the kind of treatment that they got, what I saw on the television. So, it kind of reminds me of this movie, what is it called? Wag the Dog, where they just display this massive, with all these actors in the news that are really actors, and I don't know. It's just too suspect for me of what's going on right now, and it just, to me, it's a part of what I like to call the mass media manipulation, and I think that's what's going on right now. That's pretty much what I have to say to it. See about it, and we're going to see other things unfold too, as a result of that.
Well, I guess you and I are on the same page with that, because it's amazing how we as a group of people, and I want people to indulge me for a second. Imagine this. We are the founders of building structures that no one, not even us, can remember how we did it. We are the founders of astronomy. We are the founders of mathematics, religion, all the sciences. Yet in 2021, these same people, and I'm not just talking about us in America, I'm talking about us around the world, are unable to decipher game. In the streets, they call it game. In this atmosphere, we can call it propaganda. We are unable to decipher. And this is a major, major problem. And why do I say we are unable to decipher? Because majority of the people believe the legitimacy of what took place yesterday. I don't believe it for a second, and I'll say it right here. I don't believe it for a second. Why don't I believe it for a second? Not because it's not possible, but because of the likelihood of something happening, and there is no, and I don't want to put in any insightful terms into the system, but there is nothing that would indicate that there was some resolve being made. It didn't look like real anger. It didn't look like you get more damage at a college football game than with at a college championship game. You get more testosterone and more violence than you get there. Now, I'm not saying that we should have that, but you look at, if you go to YouTube and look at a championship win after a parade and look at that, you can kind of see the difference between something that's legitimate and something that is primarily choreographed. And so to answer people's question, was I going to report on that? No. As a matter of fact, we're not going to talk about it much here longer because that's what it was for. That's what it was for. A distraction in order to have everybody talking about it while they're planning something else.
Exactly.
Something else is going on. We should be looking for something else, whatever that something else is, because this is clearly a distraction. And the name of this conversation tonight is Moorish Science. What you don't know will save your life. So the Prophet Noble Ali says, when you sleep on a bed of roses, look out for the thorns. That thing went way too choreographed and smoothly. Although it's always going to have some people in the midst of get hit on the back end with something, but nah, I'm not going for it for a second. We got this military they got drones flying all over the place. They can go shoot Uday and Kusay while they taking a poop and eating breakfast. This military has the intelligence to be able to neutralize third world to third nuclear power countries. And yet they are unable to foresee and neutralize something like that. That doesn't even make sense to me, and it doesn't deserve my attention, period. So what I wanted to say is, brother, we're coming up on the Prophet Noble Ali's birthday, and it's so unfortunate that many people still have a misunderstanding of what the Prophet Noble Ali and the Moorish Science Temple of America is dedicated to. Let me say this. Let's start right here. And I'm speaking as a national representative. Let me say this, and then I'll have you respond to this. If you are in the public and you are seeking a Moorish Science Temple of America, and you think that it has the ability to enlighten you, to awaken you, or lead you down the path of liberation, the first thing you want to look for is moral character. Any leader should have character, moral character. Now, you might say, well, talk about, you always yelling. Listen, don't trip off of that. Don't let people lead you to believe that my passion is about division or my passion is about causing destruction. No, my passion is about enlightening and waking people up and putting you on point so you won't be deceived. That's what it's all about. But now, take away the passion and hold on to the message. But now, if you are a part of a Moorish Science Temple of America, this is what they're not going to like, and I'm going to pass the Akhenaten. If your Supreme Grand Sheik or Grand Sheik smokes weed, you might want to reconsider. I don't care if they say it's medicinal. I don't care if they say they got cataracts. If your leader smokes marijuana, it's unacceptable as a Moorish American Muslim. What do you have to say about that, Brother Akhenaten?
Oh, no doubt about it. And the Prophet made several statements clearly, specifically for officials, for heads of temples and heads of businesses and leaders, that they should not, fall in any intoxicating or things that would prove to be harmful. He made several statements like that. So it is important to make a decision if you're looking for leadership, because these are supposed to be our leadership, that we have to consider why would someone, and I have a background, of course, of as a proponent of being healthy and health and wellness, and that's what the prophet was. He was a healer, and to put anything that is combustive in our lungs is causing harm to ourselves. And Grand Sheik, let's be real about this. If you're going to cause harm to yourself, there's every likely you're going to cause harm to someone else, because you have a disregard for yourself. And this is why the prophet talked about, why the temple was here. We need to learn to love instead of hate, right? And there are certain practices that we do that are really self-hatred. And that tends to, if a person has positioned themselves in a leadership capacity and they're doing things like that, you are in that category of what the prophet talking about. He said the problems largely in life are social and economic, but on a more profound sense, it's spiritual and moral. And so moral has a lot to do with our character, which has a lot to do with who we are, because nationality deals with the character and the quality of a person that arises from the fact of a person belonging to a nation. So character is very key. Chapter 5 tells us that, we go into the workshop of the mind where things are made of thought and where we build character. So it's all about character building, and it's hard to, for anybody that espouses that. Obviously, they have some kind of addictive issues, and they are utilizing certain chemicals that, to me, hey, it takes a lot already, Grand Chief, for us to control our own body and our lives with our mind, with us having some sort of control of our mind and our actions. But when you don't have it, then you really out of touch and liable for anything for you to do.
Hey, brother, and I just want to chime in a bit. And the reason why I point this out is because we are in a weed era of time, and people will walk into these places. People will walk into these places that's called the Moorish Science Temple of America and accept someone being a weed head junkie. will accept someone, and I'm not calling names, I'm just saying it is what it is. I don't want the new generation thinking that that is a part of what the Prophet Noble Drew Ali brought. The teachings that we teach as the Moorish Science Temple of America, affectionately styled and known as the Noble Temples, we're going to teach the orthodoxy of the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. In other words, we're going to stick to the letter as well as the spirit. And with that being said, for those who are interested, no matter where you may be, you may like personalities, you may like a certain group, and you might like some of the way that they dress or some of the way that they talk. But one of the first things that we're going to point out today that could save your life is study the words of the Prophet and let that be your standard. Right here, general laws are said by the Prophet as you go down. The Prophet said, the heads of our temple are to remain from all wrathful words, profanity in the mildest form. This is why a lot of people, Moorish nationals in particular, are not suited to walk this walk to the fullest. You hear all the filthy mouth. You know what I mean? They just be talking up some stuff. They be going in. And furthermore, listen to what it said, family. And this is for those who may be interested in the Moorish Science Temple of America. When you talk to people and you go to a temple, I want you to know that this is unacceptable behavior. It said the heads of all temples are to refrain from all wrathful words, profanity in the mildest form, from all the members of his or her temple. They must live a life of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and refrain from all alcoholic liquors and any harmful possibility that will terminate to destroy peace and any other divine principles. So this is for the young people that has shown and continue to show interest in the Moorish Science Temple of America. That is unacceptable behavior. That is not Prophet Noble Drew Ali's behavior. And if you join a temple and that behavior exists, you can expect to have a rocky experience as it relates to the teachings of the Prophet Noble Drew Ali.
No doubt.
Islam?
No doubt. Islam.
Asa, are you there? I see
Islam. Arise, giving praise to Allah and honor to his noble prophet. I was resting and I just thought I would come in. I just wanted to be in and listen to my leadership. It's all about growth, you know, and if you're in the Moorish Science Temple of America, coming through the Moorish Science Temple of America, and you coming in off of the streets of any city you in, and you come into a Moorish Science Temple of America, please don't think that all of a sudden, because you proclaim your nationality as a Moorish American, and your race is Asiatic, and your religion is Islamism, don't think this thing gonna happen overnight. All we have to do is listen to our leadership. If you're a member, listen to your leadership. And they say the half ain't been told. Maybe we better listen to Akhenaten, you know, and about our health, you know. Listen to our Grand Sheik and Chairman of the Moorish Science Temple of America. And it caused me some growth. Because I'm telling you, I've been around for a minute, and I've learned some things that I have never learned before. I never learned how to make it applicable to our life, because it was never taught to me within the settings of the Moorish Science Temple of America that I thought was the Moorish Science Temple of America. But all praise is due to Allah for the Moorish American Muslims, wherever you may be. Praise Allah. Love is for the Prophet. Put them out front. You know, from now on, if you commit to this, you know, it's a commitment because we have holy covenants. You know, so we're bound by that. You know, it's a bond of affection. That don't mean we're going to socialize and don't get no work done, taking pictures and everything. That ain't it. With that, I just want to say Islam with peace.
Islam, brothers. Grand Sheik, just the camelback on, I think, a crucial thing that our brother Star Satiel made mention. You know, the Moorish Science Temple of America is about that growth, right? And, you know, because we are stating some facts about what the leadership should be, we don't want anybody to feel like, hey, this is, you know, if you find yourself and you haven't grown to a certain state, that's the reason why you come to the Moorish Science Temple. And the Grand Sheik is just telling us what you should expect going in, because we don't want anybody to be misled that have been misled, as you heard the personal testimony of Brother Asar Satiel saying that he's been through, and I'm right with him, been with through the Moorish Science Temple, and we've had leadership that didn't work towards that standard and make certain excuses for not reaching that standard. And the standard is our Prophet Noble Jew Ali. That's what we push so hard. That's the only reason why we make certain statements like the Moorish Science Temple of America styled as the Noble Temples, because we have to make a distinction right now. It is important to make a distinction because there's so many of the youth that's going on and thinking that this is what the Moorish Science Temple is, and it's not. And they come in confused. So we are position ourselves to toe the line and do as Brother Asar Satiel just mentioned, my brother, saying how we put the prophet out at front. We the nobles of nobles. That's what we affectionately call it, because we want people to know that Noble Jew Ali is that person that we hold as our standard, and we truly do what he said do. Imitate the prophet. That's our goal. And if ever we find ourselves, we have the courage for truth. Isn't that what our teaching's about, Grand Sheik? And I hear you repeat it all the time, but we want to reinforce that and emphasize we have the courage for truth. If we recognize that we are not doing anything that imitates the prophet, we immediately start putting in the work to shift our position to make sure we're right on the same vibration and frequency of the Prophet Noble Jew Ali. So we just wanted to underscore that point there. This is an organization for us to come in and learn, as the prophet said, how to love instead of hate. Because obviously we've been hating for a long time. That's what he said. And this is his statement he's been saying back in the 20s. And look at us, Grand Sheik, we in the 20s again, 100 years later. And we have to reinforce this. And it's now time for the resurgence of the Moorish Science Temple of America, as you said, Grand Sheik, and why I really just salute you and for stepping out in front and stating the true fact that we haven't seen the Moorish Science Temple of America since the prophet left. That puts a burden on us now, that we must be the ones to be, as chapter 2 talks about, the revealers of the light, to reveal what Prophet Noble Jew Ali brought to us, and stay focused, not distracted. I'll make this little point and turn the floor back over to you, Grand Sheik, because you left off with an important aspect, because you talked about what happened this yesterday in the quote unquote capital, right? The Prophet Noble Jew Ali is returning us back to recognize that we have a responsibility in this government to reclaim the government that we set up. And the only way to do that is for us to become the better citizens, right? And participate in the political establishment, because it belongs to us. Otherwise, we participate in what they call, what the prophet called so correctly, political slavery. Now, the thought is this: if we look at how things work, and the prophet teaches us how to trace ourselves, and we look back in terms of history, this is a critical moment right now. Because if we look at what happened in 1877, where they had that compromise, right? And this is why, as you said, Grand Sheik, it's important that we got to see what's really going on, not what is projected, but what's really going on. And in 1877, remember that whole compromise was about taking the power away from us Asiatic, Moorish, quote unquote, African American people from the political and economic power structure. And we see how the momentum will happen just as it did back in the 1877, right? When the momentum happened, when we began to understand what we began to understand that our vote can make a difference, right? And so there's some things that's going on. And I close at this point, as you said, it was a distraction. And what does that tell us that we need to first and foremost not look over there or outside of us what's going on? It means we need to more so focus on ourselves, building ourselves, building our own community, not letting us get so distracted of what's happening out there. And that's what the Moorish Science Temple of America is designed for, us to be a body politic and not be so much concerned about the things that are going outside that we don't have no control, or they are orchestrating something. The time now is to go within and deal with ourselves.
Absolutely. And let me regress and let me touch on that for a second. You know, in studying the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, and I'm gonna be putting out, you know, I'm gonna be sending you this presentation that I was working on today. And studying the teachings of the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, most profoundly, Prophet Noble Drew Ali was able to galvanize the hearts and minds of a group of people who had been disenfranchised since as you said, 1877, you know, and even prior to that. But, you know, really, you know, after the Reconstruction, man, we was trying to pull it all together. And Prophet Noble Drew Ali, you know, the amazing thing is that people don't even acknowledge the so many elements that the Prophet Noble Drew Ali utilizes for the liberation of a group of people. But let's just talk about the political aspect. The political aspect is so telltale that it only takes a second to glance at the process and see how effective it is. It takes 1 second to see Prophet Noble Drew Ali say he got 3,000 people moving one way. And at the blink of an eye in 1929, every person that they voted for was in office.
That's right.
It doesn't even take a social political course. It takes a blink of an eye of him uniting over 3,000 people in Chicago, and every person that they put their vote behind was put in office. From an alderman to a judge to a congressman. And this history is hidden. This is something that is monumental. This is something that, you know, should be talked about in the most profound political science lecture in every college across the United States of America and internationally.
For real.
I mean, come on. This guy that comes from North Carolina by the way of Norfolk, Virginia, goes to New Jersey, comes to Chicago, and within 3 years galvanized enough people not only to change the political landscape, but also change the economic landscape. This should be taught in every economic course in college. This is why I'm so passionate about the teachings of the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, because this fugazi stuff that we see online about the Prophet Noble Drew Ali has nothing to do with the Prophet Noble Drew Ali.
Exactly.
This Moorish national stuff has nothing to do with the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. This dress up and play Moorish American has nothing to do with the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. Nothing whatsoever. The Prophet Noble Drew Ali in a short 3 years amassed the wealth for the Moorish Science Temple of America, over $1 million in a short 3 years. We don't want to talk about money. We don't want to talk about money. One of the things Prophet Noble Ali says is that we want to make sure that our members have better jobs and better homes, better employment, better jobs, better homes
for our women and our boys and girls. Shit like that, right?
Yes. So what in the world would we be wasting our time with any organization calling themselves the Moorish Science Temple of America have not galvanized the interest of the membership to move as one? Why would we be wasting our time? If most people was in the streets, they wouldn't waste their time with a drug group like that. If the drug group was smoking the crack, let's keep it a buck. If the drug group was smoking the crack, smoking the weed, they say, man, I'm going to go do my own thing. I'm going to get my own pack. But when you get with religion, they watch the leadership do all this crazy fugazi stuff and they stick with it. It's beyond me. It's beyond me. But the Prophet Noble Drew Ali gave the perfect example. Just think about, I think we get lost sometimes. I think many people think Prophet Noble Drew Ali tenure as in Chicago was 15 or 20 years.
Right.
It was in less than 3 years. The Great Parade, all the businesses, every temple with a school. We like to romanticize these things as opposed to try to practice these things. Unbelievable to me, brother. Unbelievable to me. And so, to your point, on the political, what the distraction is to make you believe that is an option, that anarchy is an option. I bet you Trump won't be in office. If anarchy is an option, Trump would be in office today. But it wants you to believe, the emotional people, that it's an option. And if voting or the political process didn't work, then why is it so much confusion going on?
Right. Say that again.
If the political process didn't work, why is it so much confusion? Why did they hang your ancestors? Why did they do Jim Crow? Why did they do Jim Crow? If the political process didn't work. So any leader, whether they call themselves black or whatever, that says that politics is not a reasonable, practical resource for liberation, partly because you got to save yourself, then I think they have agent ability. They have the potential to be an agent. Any organization that will tell you do not participate in the political process is about the same thing that the oppressor is about.
That's right.
The moment that you don't participate, that's the moment you don't have power. Now, the way that you participate is different than the way that you have been participating. The way that you have been participating is good for nobody. The way that the Prophet Noble Drew Ali demonstrated on how we supposed to participate can change things overnight.
That's right.
And that's participating as a collective. As a collective. And this is why I do Moorish World TV and I talk to my people that's dealing with the Grandmaster J concept, that's dealing with the Michi X concept, that's dealing with alternative concepts outside of what Moors think is important. We live in a big world. We live in a big world, and in this big world, it's going to take all of us. I'm not going to take all of us to put on a fez or turban, but it's going to take all of us to say, you know what? Let's be of one mind politically, economically, and we can get some things done. And so yeah, brother, that thing was a big distraction. And like I said, the most emotional people that watch that, they might attempt to repeat it, but the results will be totally different.
Yeah.
because you are not them. Period.
Exactly.
And that right there is something that has been put in place to send a message that that is an alternative. That is an alternative to doing things through the political system. So my brother El Nucleus Bay say, I am scared of politics. I'm afraid of politics, bro.
Mm.
Well, that'll be just like somebody having a gun and say, I'm afraid of the gun. What do I mean by that?
Yeah,
The
that's a
gun
good
don't
analogy.
kill people. It's the person
Mm-hmm.
with the gun that kill people.
Mm-hmm.
Politics don't kill people. It's the politician that's abusing the power of the position in politics that kill the people. So what is the common denominator? Remove the person from the trigger, grab the trigger, put it on safety, and let's move on.
And use it when you gotta use it.
Move the people out of position. But now, how do you move the people out of position?
Mm-hmm.
That's where the Moorish Science Temple of America come in. That's where the Alliance for Political Accountability come in.
Mm-hmm.
To show you how to galvanize the masses of our people, which we're going to go out into the public and do it this year after this post-COVID, and we're going to get some political power. But let me move into another subject. For anybody who's interested in the Moorish Science Temple of America, and if your Grand Sheik or leadership has had issues morally, you might want to be careful. You might want to be careful if your leadership has had moral issues. That doesn't mean that they can't get themselves together. But if they have moral issues, if they mess with some brother, wife, if they didn't mess with a couple of sisters that's supposed to be members and learning to be a better person, if they didn't bounce the sisters around and say, oh, let me hook you up with this brother. That is not the Moorish Science Temple of America. That
That's right.
doesn't mean that you're not going to have relationships and they're going to fail. And that doesn't mean any of that. But when you know that your leadership has been using his leadership or her leadership to do the most immoral things,
Mm-hmm.
you might want to second guess that, because the Moorish Science Temple of America is about making you a better person.
Right.
Anything you want to add, brother?
More indeed. That's the purpose of the Moorish Science Temple. It's about us becoming better citizens, better persons, having a better character, and if the leadership, we find leadership that is not living up to those standards, then what have we to say about how that temple is going to be? you know, because they're going to yield the seeds. And I've seen in temples of some of my experience in the past, you can see where the leadership, when they were either passive about certain immoral behavior that was going on, which means in a sense they are condoning it, right? Or they participating in it. I've seen that the membership, some of the membership feel that that's an acceptable kind of behavior, and it'll either have members who have a genuine spirit and heart. It will make them disgruntled and want to leave it, or you'll have more of the same kind of issues going on amongst each other. And that temple will never be a good functioning temple.
Absolutely. And that's the one thing that we have to point out, because I'm about to tell you something, brother. In 2021, I have some interviews in the bag and more to come, where it's a whole bunch of bad experiences from Moorish American brothers and sisters.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about from money changers, from
Mm-hmm.
immoral behavior as it relates to the abuse of power for sexual pleasures.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna clean this ideal up, because listen, it's the sad thing about it is this, brother. A lot of this stuff come from back in the day. Back in the day, the Moors used to have these stories. They used to have these stories that, oh, Prophet Noble Drew Ali, he had two wives. He had Sister Pearl and Sister Mary Drew Ali. And, you know, Prophet said one day you will have two. So that
Right.
gave us the sense back in the day that, okay, we can have a couple wives. No problem. Then the second thing that compounded that was the prophet said, keep your wrongdoings out the eyesight of the public. Remember that one?
Yes, sir.
So what
Yeah.
compounded that is like, I can be immoral, I can be filthy, as long as the public don't know.
Right.
I can drink, I can talk crazy. And let me say this. This is not for those who are joining. If you're joining, bring your weed breath and your drink breath with you.
Mm-hmm.
That's not for you. But if you bring your weed breath and your drink breath and your infidelity and all of that stuff that you got, if you bring it with you, and the person that's supposed to help you bring you from that is doing the same thing, the odds is you ain't going nowhere. That's the odds. Just the odds is you're not going nowhere. And so this is here. This is the Moorish Science Temple of America. Moorish Science, what you don't know will save your life. What you don't know is that these behaviors are unacceptable for leadership. Now, we're past the immoral part. I hope y'all pass this around to brothers and sisters. Another thing, and I know you might like this one, brother. If you have discovered a truth and your leadership will not address it as it relates to the teachings of the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, you may be in trouble. In other words, if
Make that plain.
if you discover that Prophet Noble Drew Ali left the leadership to Emeliel, elevated Emeliel, and no one acknowledges Emeliel, don't even see. Listen, everything that the prophet did was a blueprint to what we must do.
That's right.
So Emeliel, whether he was the perfect Moorish American Muslim, is neither here nor there. The station represents what's supposed to happen in the absence of Prophet Noble Drew Ali. The station, not the person.
Right.
The station. So in other words, let me break it down to you. The person, like an Emeliel, he went and filed a yearly report for the Moorish Science Temple of America with the Secretary of State, which was unnecessary because obviously there's no need to file reports with the Moorish Science Temple of America with the Secretary of State. But he did that and then he withdrew it. People don't know about that. I'll teach about that sometime in the future. But that was Emeliel as a person. But the station that he represented was the Grand Sheikh and Chairman and the Supreme Grand Sheikh of the Supreme Grand Council. What does those positions and compass. Those positions will show you what's supposed to happen when the prophet is out of the physical. But if you disregard the existence and the importance of Emeliel's position, there's no way you can fulfill the divine plan of the ages, and the divine leaves the national movement. Brother Akhenaten.
Islam, you right on point. And I know you're going other places with this, but let's just take what you just said. You know, we got a constitution, United States Constitution, right? And we got certain positions that ain't going nowhere. You know, if you got a constitution like we have, right? The Constitution of the United States of America, we got certain officers that are in place. Article 1 talking about the Congress, Article 2 the executive branch and the leadership there and the judicial, and then someone comes behind it and change that. No, you're not abiding by the Constitution. You're really creating treason, going against the Constitution. So I say that to say again, to reinforce what you're saying, there's a lot of people who know what the prophet set up. We have the divine constitution for the Moorish Science Temple of America. The Moorish Science Temple of America, divine constitution, bylaws. There's a structure there, and we also have on record what the prophet initiated, and that was one of the ones you talked about, the Supreme Grand Council, the Supreme Grand Sheik, and this was for us to model. And you find, as we speak about, so that this is what we are to do, imitate the prophet.
And so all we can do is simply be as the prophet. We're warning people to know that when you're not to know whether you're with a legitimate and bona fide or ordained Moorish Science Temple of America, Moorish Science Temple of America, then this is what we are doing to make sure that people will know that what the Moorish Science Temple of America is to look like. So we find that there are certain organizations that they know this information, that there is a leadership or title called the Supreme Grand Sheik, and you're not even acknowledging it, nor acknowledging the fact that the prophet's choice was Brother Emeliel, and you find every way to skirt your responsibility, I would say, as a leadership, to honor that person, honor them in their name, because it was the prophet's choice. That's an insult that's an insult and a dishonor to the Prophet Noble Jew Ali. That was his choice, and you can't make it come out of your mouth. But you got everybody else that you give honor to by name that was never out of the mouth of the prophet and put into a position like that. Something wrong with that picture right there. And if you have leadership, as you're saying, Grand Sheik, that reinforces that, then that should let you know the direction of that movement. Because I love the way you say it, that if you anything that's divine has to be based on truth. If it's not divine. Absolutely. And this is to be a divine and national movement that the prophet put up. The Moorish divine and national movement. And if you're going for the lie, oh man, it can't be nothing that you do can be divine.
And the thing is that there's many lies.
Grand Sheik.
Can you hear me?
No, I can't hear you.
Or
Man,
is
my
it
mic
me? Maybe it's me.
might be you.
Hold on a second. I had somebody interrupt.
Yeah. I was going to say that when you're looking at the Prophet Noble Drew Ali's movement, there is a specific structure that is to be followed. There is a specific structure that, according to what we know of that structure, that we must follow. Don't follow that structure, it's virtually impossible to benefit from the movement as the Prophet and the Moors have proved to benefit. Period, point blank. Let me make sure people can hear me. Can you hear me? I think we have some technical difficulties. Let me see. Press 1 if you can hear me. Let me check my live real quick. Let me check this real quick. Oh yeah. All right, we good on my end. And so what the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, Prophet Noble Drew Ali's structure is very specific. Prophet Noble Drew Ali's structures, it addresses 4 main things. When you look at this circle 7, oh, I'm at the wrong side. There's 4 breaks in here. So let's just use that as an example. It addresses 4 main things. One thing that it addresses is the political. The political process means that we all galvanize our votes together locally and we affect change as a group. In other words, if we want somebody to move that money for us, we take our 15,000 people and say, all of us, regardless if you know politics or not, all of us, we're voting for Scott L. on November the 8th. That's it. That's all. Me and Scott L know what we about to do for the rest of us. Scott L don't deliver, Scott L get dealt with. Period, point blank. So that's from a political perspective. On the flip side of that, the economic. If you got $2 and I got $2, that's $4. Well, $1 go home, $1 going to invest. So now we got $2 to invest. Each of us got $1 for our family. If we get 200 people to join in with us in this investment, now we can create a situation where we have a product where we could sell not to Moorish Americans. That's a silly move, trying to sell everything to Moorish Americans. No, now we have a product that we can produce and sell to other people. And I encourage Moorish Americans in our temple, don't sell nothing to no Moors. If they want to buy it, let them buy it. But your objective is just like any other civilized country or that we deem civilized. China would rather sell to America. Of course, they sell to themselves, but they want to import American dollars, American interests. That's how they grow. So we as members of the Moorish Science Temple of America, the reason why I don't promote and sell these shirts are my personal thing. They for my personal thing because I ain't wearing that polo. I'm good. You know what I'm saying? So the objective of the Moorish Science Temple of America, as the Prophet Noble Drew Ali talks about, he said, we need to establish enterprises, an industry, and then we bring the money back. So remember what I said. 4 main elements of the Moorish Science Temple of America. We got political, and not necessarily in this order, political, economics, education. We should be teaching ourselves, our children, the science of our ancestors. A European shouldn't have to teach your child mathematics. A European shouldn't have to teach your child biology. A European shouldn't have to teach your child sociology, spelling, reading, or anything. If your child by default goes to the public school system. It's your job to make sure that you are of the dominant influence. The Moorish Science Temple of America is supposed to be covering that within the walls and the doors of the Moorish Science Temple of America. And then one thing most importantly, in our pastor, Brother Akhenaten, one thing most importantly, spirituality. Not allowing people to confuse the teachings of the Prophet Noble Drew Ali with the conventional religion that they used to. Spirituality. I'm talking about spirituality in this sense. You ain't never been born before. Let that, as I could not like to say, let that hang there. You have never been born before. Break that down. You have never been born before because you always was. You have never been born before because you predate the day that you came out physically of your mother's womb. That your existence goes back to the existence of the Creator because you are a part and partial of the Creator. And if the Creator always was, then you always was too. Because you're an extension, you're a part and partial of the Creator. So you haven't never been born. If you're able to rise above and detach yourself from the ideals and the concept of this physical experience, you will see a life beyond the life that you have experienced up to this point. In other words, many of our disappointments, many of our dissatisfactions comes from this physical experience that we have every day. It comes from the physical illusion that we have every day. The disappointment of breakups, that's an illusion. Because if one is your other self connected to the universal energy that we call a law, then there is never ever no separation. There's never ever no division. The only division exists is in the mind of the person who establishes the concept of division. See, this is Moorish science spirituality that has yet to been tapped into because many people are tapping into paperwork. Many people are tapping into singing. Many people are tapping into things that does not have nothing to do with the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America. The Prophet Noble Drew Ali says, study the Moorish Science Temple of America. Study it. Study it. The Prophet Noble, and we don't need to get caught up and for brothers and sisters who thinking that this is some form of Islam as you see brothers in the East, this is not that. This is the highest degree of unfoldment of the understanding of what man's journey from the essence of the Creator to the full cycle of returning back to the Creator. As Jesus was saying, I and my Father are one. This is Islamism. Islamism is about man and woman journeying from the physical experience to the most inner part of their being, the nearest place where you can meet God, the most inner part of your being, communing with that energy and becoming one with that. And now that energy can overpower and even heal any ailment that you may have of the flesh, because man is the spirit. And so when you look at in the Holy Quran, or you look at the questionnaire and say, who made you? And it says Allah. You have to understand what made means. The higher self in you makes you who you are. But you must tap into it and you must energize it. The Allah in you makes you who you are. Everything else is an illusion. Even the Allah in you puts you in certain situations so you can be tested and tried, as we like to call it. But in fact, what it is it's the opposition to bring out the strength of Allah that is resting in you, wanting to come to the surface. That's Islamism, orthodoxy. This is not church talk. This is not no Far Eastern talk as it relates to someone calling you a Muslim. Someone say you study Islam. No, this is Islamism. This is the profound unfoldment of the teachings of Muhammad, the profound unfoldment of the teachings of Jesus, and the profound unfoldment of the teachings of all the prophets. And whether you like it or not, Prophet Noble Drew Ali was the one to present it to us. No one else presented this to you. No one else presented to you that you can become the flesh and blood of Allah. Somebody told you that that was shirk. But in fact, hold on, Brother Akhenaten, and indulge me for 1 second. Somebody told you that was shirk. But how can something be shirk if Allah is all? Did not the Creator created everything? If Allah is all, even the flesh, though it can contribute to our illusion, can be powered in reverse. If falsehood is truth reverse, then falsehood can be reversed into truth. You have to study your Quran to understand this. So in Moorish science, in Islamism, there is no bad day. The bad day is the day that you conceive that it's bad. In Moorish science and Islamism, there is no high, there is no low. It just is. And this is why the Prophet Noble Drew Ali said, heaven, hell, and earth is not above, around, below, but within. In Islamism, your reality is the concepts of your spirituality. Low spirituality, your concepts will be tangible. Everything you see will affect you. High spirituality, believe none of what you see, because they're just reflexes. They're just illusions. I yield the floor to Brother Akhenaten. And if you're not learning that in the Moorish Science Temple of America, I'm telling you, you are in for a ride. Brother Akhenaten.
Islam. Praise Allah for what you just breathed on us, Grand Sheik. And, that's why I say we are the Moorish American Muslim nobles of nobles, brethren. Because we were breathed on by the Holy Prophet, that holy breath. And you just was bringing the holy breath that is not really taught in, unfortunately, some of the places that call themselves the Moorish Science Temple of America. They have adopted these other carnal ideas of man that doesn't belong to what the prophet's teaching is about, and it's like they shy away from that aspect of what really Islamism is, that we don't have a problem like that. And this is why, you touched on some things about saying that we were never birthed, we were never born. I mean, that if you don't know that you've been here before, this is the teachings of the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, and it shows that we understand that concept so well, and that because the Prophet taught us so through his divine instruction, that we understand that our Prophet Noble Drew Ali is Jesus who come again. As you talked about, he was the enfoldment of all those. And in our teaching, we say that Prophet Muhammad of Mecca was Jesus, Jesus who come again. And today we recognize as our prophet, and he's the only one that made that connection again of who Jesus really was, and that we come out of that bloodline. And so the thing is, Jesus was so, most people are familiar with the Bible for the most part, and they know that Jesus was the only one that was really teaching. I mean, he wasn't the only one, but we are familiar with him talking about him and his father were one. And how you know we can really know that our prophet is Jesus again, because he came with the same teachings and didn't have any problem of saying what Jesus would say back what we think of Jesus a couple thousand years ago. The teachings is mimicking that. And so the people that been looking for Jesus to return, he's been here and he's still here. And the fact is, he was telling us about that oneness of Allah. And that's in our core teaching at the Moorish Science Temple of America. And so Grand Sheikh is sharing with us. Our Grand Sheikh Tahaka Bey is unfolding to us to make sure that everyone has a checklist to go through to know whether you're in a Moorish Science Temple of America that's been sanctioned and ordained by the Prophet Noble Jew Ali. This is a key point.
Indeed. And brother, I'm glad that you said that. When we talking about, see, one thing that we have to do is, if you are interested in the teachings of the Prophet Noble Jew Ali, great. You can join the Moorish Science Temple of America, styled as the Noble Temples, or any other group that you choose. But we're giving you some pointers and what to look for. But if you are a member of any group calling themselves the Moorish Science Temple of America, I would encourage you to forget everything you was taught. Pick up your Quran and reteach yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not telling you something that I didn't have to do. Pick up your Quran and reteach yourself. Get all the Moorish God articles so you can have an evidence as to how the Moors were moving during the time of the Prophet. When you have the Moorish God articles, that is not a holy doctrine, but what it does is it illustrates the building of a nation. And if anybody is not doing those things or have a plan for those things to come, you're wasting your time. No one can keep telling you for 15 years, for 10 years, for 5 years that we need to do this, or we going to do this, or if Microsoft did that, you would not be looking at me right now through this screen. Every group should have a plan for success. Now, on the last note, before we get out of here, one of the last things that we have to pay attention to, and I'm gonna keep it a buck with you. The only reason I'm gonna say this, not because, well, let me just say it, and then I say what I was about to say. If someone tell you don't listen to Tahaka Bey, go listen to Tahaka Bey. Whoever that Tahaka Bey is. If someone tell you don't listen to somebody, go listen to them. I don't care if it was Taj Tariq. I don't care if it was Taj somewhere, Alim Bey or Tahaka Bey. If someone tell you don't listen to them, go listen to them. But now here's the caveat to that. Once you listen to them, go back and ask them about what you heard. So if you listen to a Tahaka Bey, The first thing that somebody going to tell you about Tahaka Bay, don't pay no attention to him. He's just causing division. How do I know this? Because I get calls every day of brothers and sisters apologizing to me, say I came at you wrong. I got one today, honor to my brother who came at me like that. I get these calls every day. Brother, I was wrong. I didn't take time to study you for myself because I was told this about you. In the last 2 days, this is why I'm bringing this up. In the last 2 days, I done got 2 different calls from this. And unfortunately, they called me with some atrocities that has been perpetrated against people who had joined temples and was taken advantage of. And they say, brother, you told me. But I was told not to pay attention to you, that you about division, that you just causing confusion. So that's my advice. If someone tell you, stay away from that person, don't listen to that person, go and listen to that person. But after you listen to him, regurgitate it back. So if you listen to Brother Tahaka Bay and I tell you that the Moorish Science Temple of America was not designed during the time of the prophet to have a secession during the time of the prophet, that was forthcoming. For Eliel said at the first setting of the Supreme Grand Council, I was appointed by the prophet and I was approved by you. That would imply that there's going to be a what? If there's a first, there's a what? There's a second. So how did the first Supreme Grand Council get established? Well, we know that was the last thing that happened in the journey of the Moorish Science Temple of America. The Supreme Grand Council was set at the first annual convention. The movement had been built.
That's right.
So many people running around claiming these titles, want to be supreme this and supreme that, and haven't built nothing. You already know. Because the answer is in the footprints that the prophet left. He had built 15 temples before there was a supreme grand sheikh. That's the example. He had built 15 temples. He had put people in political power. He had built an economic empire before there was a Supreme Grand Council, before there was a Supreme Grand Sheikh. So everybody's running around want to be supreme, mean, bean pie gene. You already know. You already know. The building, according to the prophet, comes first, and that building starts with self. And then goes outward. So, in closing, and I'll give it to Akhenaten, then I'll close and say something else. If I was to tell you that there is no unbroken line of leadership nowhere in the Moorish Science Temple of America, so-called, that people call themselves. And when I say nowhere, I mean nowhere. Kirkman Bey did not receive authority from the Prophet Noble Drew Ali or Eliel. I mean nowhere. Kirkman Bey is self-appointed, and everybody he appointed was appointed by him or those who succeeded him. Nobody appointed him. Nobody voted him in. No, no, no. And if Tahaka Bey said that, you take it to your leadership and you say, well, show me the appointment letter, family. Show me the meeting minutes. I don't want to hear rumors no more. I don't want to hear what he say no more. Show me the legal minutes. Let me tell you something about the prophet, and I teach this in our temple. The prophet established the minute process because once it's in the minute, it becomes law, and law, it can be used in a court of law. Minutes is an official law document. Show me the minutes. No minutes in business, it didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
This is a fact. That's number one. On the email side, there is not no organizational pass down of leadership nowhere. It doesn't exist. It's all made up fantasy. Why do I point this out? And the most ridiculous thing that somebody would say, oh, he just causing division. He throwing somebody under the bus. No. What I want to do is I want to illustrate that this stuff is made up and that we will never be able to benefit from the Moorish Science Temple of America idealistically or from Islamism idealistically until we acknowledge these lies, do away with them, and do what we have been, I guess, commissioned to do. We are supposed to look at the blueprint that the prophet left us. Most importantly, I call it the divine ministry period. From the time that he filed that paperwork at the Secretary of State until that day he wrapped that flag around that sister and that brother and say, on this day I made you a nation. If you can understand that block of time right there and every little intricate detail of what happened, then you might be able to build a true Moorish Science Temple of America. Because at this day and time, unfortunately, on the ground, brick and mortar, politically, socially, economically, educationally, it doesn't exist. But we are working towards bringing it to reality in the same way that the prophet gave it to us. Brother Akhenaten.
Islam, so well said, Grand Sheik. You know, I'll leave with this thought. There's nothing new under the sun. And you can see, for those who had the eyes, who had the mind to see, they'll see, replication throughout time. And I say that to say, to preface that with, there was always power struggles after a prophet or a spiritual leader was, after they left the scene. It happened really before they left the scene, so-called, or veiled the flesh. We can look at many times in history, whether it's for those who most familiar with Jesus during his particular time. He had people in the midst of him that were selling him out for a few pieces of silver, as they metaphorically say, which just meant their greed, wanting to take over the movement or something. And it was after that fact that you had even more after he died. It really solidified in terms of people claiming the mantle or the seat of power. It happened with Muhammad. When Muhammad passed, and this is why you got all these divisions of Muslim sects, Shias and Sunnis and etc. So likewise, it unfolded in the Moorish Science Temple of America. And this is why we say those who fulfill this is the key, as all of them mention that we are to fulfill. Even Jesus talked about it. He said, no, I just come here to fulfill the law. And what we as the Moorish Science Temple of America are working towards is to fulfill what the prophet did. And that means to reproduce and unfold even more from the foundation that the prophet had laid. And it's not about anymore all of the myths that were created. You had, when Jesus left, Peter was come on the scene, and Paul come on talking about he had a dream and he was supposed to be the leadership, right? And you had similar situation after Muhammad. Everybody wanted to claim a bloodline connection and succession and all this kinds of things that were claiming, but nobody really fulfilled what they were, what they actually were doing. So, in conclusion, the point that we are striving and working towards, and while I like to call it like the resurgence of the Moorish Science Temple of America, is because we're not worrying about those myths and lies. I fell into that too because I didn't know any better. And praise Allah, Grand Sheik, is like you were telling my story, and you know the story already, because there were people who shared with me about you, but I'm, praise Allah, that I had my own mind, to think and say, what is this person talking about? I hear all this controversy going on, and I could have been swayed, by that, yeah, because this guy was making division. And, I watched you and watched you, yeah, you was talking loud. And and I'm so glad, praise Allah, that I didn't have that mindset. I said, well, let me see what this brother really is saying for myself, and really watch you. And so I studied you and watched you and was watching how you move. And when I said, this brother really is passionate about the prophet and the Moorish Science Temple of America. And I haven't seen anyone with that, with your level of passion to go out there. And I thought I loved the prophet. And I do. And when I saw you, it's like I see myself, but you had a different demeanor than mine. And you went and defended the prophet. You utilized your talent, your skills, and you accepted your calling to do what you're doing right now, is to provide a venue, a medium for people to really get in, to really know the prophet. That's the best way to say it, to really know the prophet and the Moorish Science Temple of America. And you've done it so well. You came up against so many people that were talking downgrading the prophet and the Moorish Science Temple of America, and you had your own so-called, their own people that call themselves Moorish Science Temple and Moorish American Muslims that you would think would be, saluting you and urging you on because you were defending the prophet. But, we know how those stories go in terms of some people want, it's their ego getting in the way, and they see someone doing something, instead of supporting it, they want to condemn it. But you went out there and did it. So I watched, and I listened, and I say all this to say, as I started out saying, this is why I support you, because, when I'm supporting you, to me, I'm supporting the prophet. I'm supporting the Moorish Science Temple of America. You have given opportunity after opportunity, showing it's not coming from you, it's coming from what you have learned and what you unfold and research. And you constantly give honor to your teachers that have shared information with you and taught you. and built upon that, and even, shared it with people so they can know the difference. And that's what we're supposed to do. In our chapter 7, in the Holy Quran, the Moorish Science Temple of America, Jesus has said, when they asked him, what do you have to say about understanding? And he said, understanding is the rock upon which we build ourselves. And how do we know that this is about building character? That's what the Moorish Science Temple is about, building character, but based on what? Exactly what you're talking about, Grand Chief. Not based on lies. See, an understanding is that. It's the gnosis of the art and the naught, the truth and the falsehood. You have to know the difference. And so you can't comprise the temple of purity if you don't know that you're not pure, or the things that have been attached to the Moorish Science Temple of America or the prophet, like you said, all the things they tried to say about him having more than one wife, and all kinds of things were talked about. So we got to know the truth. And you were bold enough to bring us not just what you say out of your mouth, but documentation that proved what the prophet's life was, that proved what his words were, that proved what he demonstrated, the thoughts that he had, the life that he lived, the deeds that he did. And that's what we're attempting to do, is to get on that vibration. So we're not worrying about, I know I said a lot just to get to this point again, is that we're not worrying about the myths, about this false secession that's going on. What we're doing is working on building ourselves and standing on that rock of knowing the difference of what is truly the prophet and what is the falsehood on the prophet.
You just opened up something. Let's go about 15 more minutes, brother. Let's make it a cool 15, 20 minutes, brother. Because you just opened up something.
Hey, that's enough. We on the eve of our prophet. The vibration of the prophet is right here. We on the eve of his celebration of 135 years that the prophet was born. And people have really yet to know, and we're excited about it, Grand Chief, to let people know they've been visited, as you always say, visited by a prophet.
More, because this is the amazing thing. Many of the elders that made up a lot of these stories that we follow today and we refuse to reject, they didn't really understand that a prophet does not have to be qualified by the stories that you used to of yesterday. Like I keep telling people, Prophet Noble Ali never told anybody that he split a sea, the Chesapeake Bay, or any other bay for that matter. Prophet Noble Ali never said that he talked to God and there was some shrubbery in the front yard burning. Now we know those all degrees and metaphors and similes, but the prophet never came with none of these things. He never said manna came from heaven. He never said he walked on literal water and you had to figure it out. He never said any of these things. But we, the elders, went on to make up stories. He went to the White House and retrieved the flag from Woodrow Wilson. And we don't even address that.
Yeah.
To let it go.
Right.
He went to Egypt and they put him in the pyramid, and he found his way out of the pyramid, and that's how he became a prophet. That he went to Mecca, and the Sultan Aziz, he gave him the name Sharif Abdul Ali. They just make up this stuff. Right. The amazing part is, not only did they make up these fantastic stories, they also made up egregious stories. Pearl Drew Ali cheated on the prophet with Claude Green. That's why Claude Green was murdered. Sister Delia Miliel, she was messing with Moorish. They made up egregious stories. And this was the other side, though, that wanted to dismantle the organization from within.
Right.
And you still have people repeating these stories till this day. This is the point that I'm saying it. They don't have no proof. They don't have no research. They don't have not one shred of confirmation with none of these stories. Not one. And they go around repeating this stuff as if it's okay. Well, this is the purpose of the Moorish Science Temple of America, styled as the Noble Temples. We will only repeat the verifiable record. That's it. Anything else is questionable. And anybody who follow that questionable doctrine is questionable.
Right, real talk.
Anybody who follow that questionable doctrine is questionable. And as we're about to get out here, I always will invite anybody to the round table and confront me on anything that I say. That's the thing about truth. The truth is not on my side. The truth is not on your side. The truth is just the truth. And you can make up all of these excuses. Oh, he just want to do it for a show. Oh, he just want attention. Nope. What we want to do is we want to put the truth before the public so they know which way to go. That's what the prophet did. And the prophet said, imitate him. And so you're obligated to do that. Close us out, brother.
His love, Grand Chief. Hey, I'm just honored to be here. Salute to you one more time for bringing the channel 7 in here to come with that vibration of 7, you know, and that's what we attempt to do. The Prophet Noble Jew Ali left us with Act 2, right? We fulfill Act 1, you got to go to Act 2. All meetings are to be open and closed promptly according to the Circle 7 and love, true peace, freedom, and justice. We've done that here, Grand Chief. We do that each and every time we meet, because every time we meet, that's a meeting. And we just want to keep that vibration. You know, in our Quran, the chapter 11, it talks about the angels, right? Their will were ever strong, and they held their vibration in harmony with Allah. And all that we're attempting to do is to gain our angelship, if you will, to have our vibration in harmony with Allah. That's our goal, to be in harmony with that, with Allah, is to be in harmony with the angel of Allah, which is our Prophet Noble Jew Ali. So we give honor to celebrating him. We're looking forward to a great Friday high. I like to call it the high Friday holy day. That's a high holy day. It is our prophet's birthday. It is his natal manifest birthright, as I like to call it. And it's Friday holy day, the day in which the first man was formed in flesh, and the day in which the first man, not the beginning of man, not first in terms of time, but first in terms of rank, who we really are. The first man is that spirit man, part that spirit which is the part of Allah. And we're there to honor that spirit tomorrow, the first man, and our prophet representing that in the flesh, as you talked about, as we're all to do, is to represent Allah in the flesh, or love made manifest in flesh. So peace and love, everyone. In Atlanta, if you happen to be in Atlanta at the Noble Temple 33, we invite you out to the Friday Holy Day and our salute and celebration to the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. January the 8th, 1886 is 135 years, family. That's an 8 and a 9 in his energy, and we're riding on that energy, family. So join us. If you're not in Atlanta, we'll also be going live as we always do. And of course, the Grand Sheik giving a powerful measure as well. We're looking forward to a very high holy day, our Friday holy day. Islam, and salute to our prophet, our angel of Allah, Prophet Noble Drew Ali. Islam.
Islam, family. And I want to say thank you for tuning in tonight. We just wanted to step in right before on the eve of the Prophet Noble Drew Ali's natal return. To just break down a few things. We want people to go into 2021 conscious of the Moorish Science Temple of America, the way that the Prophet Noble Drew Ali had it, and the way that it should be, and the way it should go on into the future. And so go back and review this. If you have any questions, all you have to do is message me. If your leadership have any questions, if they want a discussion, we can do that in private. We can do it in public. We can do it however you want to do it, but let's just do it right. And just because I disagree with you doesn't mean that I dislike you or I hate you. We need to stop that madness too. We can disagree, but that doesn't mean we have to be disagreeable and act like I don't like you, act like I don't hate you, act like I want to be separated from you. The truth should be the glue that brings us together in the first place. So if I'm not telling the truth, I need to be checked. I need to be checked immediately. So I can get myself right, because I don't want to lead nobody down the wrong road, and neither should you want that on your checklist of traveling through the universe either. So with that being said, peace and love, family. I see y'all tomorrow on our Holy Day meeting. Thank you, Brother Akhenaten. That's my brother, my friend. And that's that brother right there. Good goodness and gracious. He going to be on fire tomorrow with Holy Zeal live on YouTube, and I will follow up right behind him on YouTube. So look out for us. And again, subscribe to channel number 7. Channel number 7 is going to have some real serious stuff coming up here. I got coming up, I delayed it, putting out the interview about Supreme Grand Sheik Clarence Prather. Honor to him, honor to him for the interview. Honor to him for the interview. And let me tell you something. I asked him the good, tough questions, and he answered those questions, and you will be delighted to hear his answers, I'm sure. And so any other leader who wants to sit down and have an interview, wait till you watch the Supreme Grand Sheik or Sheik Clarence Prather interview and make a decision. I would love to interview you if you say that you are a leader. And if you are a leader, you should allow me to interview you, because it is what it is. I am the most visible Moorish American on social media representing the temple ideal. This is not an ego thing. It is what it is. And it would be an honor to interview every leader within the ranks of the ideal known as the Moorish Science Temple of America. Without no foolery. Just a real sit down, real interview. With that being said, peace and love, family. But don't call me you've been a Supreme Grand Sheik from last week because you filed something in the county of Casablanca, and now, you know what I mean, you want envy. I'm not envying you. Salute, Brother Akhenaten. Peace and love.
Grand Sheik, as you go out, we got to let the people know how they can share some love to you. You are constantly sacrificing your time with your family, your work. So please, I don't have a way of doing it on my end. Put in the Cash App, family. Y'all need to support our Moorish world, Moorish American Muslim media mogul, That's what he is. He's the icon for Moorish American Muslims. And so we need to show the love and support so that he can continue to do this and without some of the stresses that he has to do, trying to get equipment and making a product like he does. He does phenomenal with what he got.
Hey, bro, let me say this to you. Hey, brother, I appreciate what you just said because and what you said, most people think that you just turn on the camera, but I do got a little bit of skills, right? And so what I'm working on now is, one second. This is what everybody will see tomorrow if you attend Brother Akhenaten, or after he presented, he will premiere it. But brother, let me show you this. But to your point, brother, this presentation coming up tomorrow that I'm working on now, that here it is. This is what I'm working on. So what I'm doing is I'm giving a walkthrough, a brief walkthrough of the Prophet Noble Drew Ali's journey. Just a brief walkthrough. And as you can see, I've actually upgraded. I got the green screen looking really, really nice. It's upgraded, and I have a lot of technical things that I'm using now. I've upgraded my software. So yes, it do cost a little finance. It definitely costs time. And so all the support is appreciated. If you appreciate what we bring, just like you send a few dollars to Comcast or your local cable network, it's okay to support. I mean, even if the people say don't support that, you ain't got to tell them nothing. Just help us out so we can keep on bringing you quality content as it relates to the Moorish Science Tip of America. And I've also put the one, which you got 135 or 1350. I'm also put that in the chat too. So thank you for all your support, and thank you for pointing that out, Brother Akhenaten, because I definitely put in a lot of time. Goodness gracious. Salute.
Islam.
Islam.